Welcome to Maritime Pakistan, your gateway to the fascinating world of oceans and the opportunities they present to every one of us. Our goal is to explore the shared heritage of the seas and oceans to achieve global prosperity. Today's discussion explores the book, The Sea in History, The Ancient World. Our discussion will focus on the 17th chapter, Greek colonization, connectivity, and the Middle Sea.
Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We've got a fantastic roadmap today. We're starting off with a myth of isolation, moving into the sea of connectivity, looking at the nodes in the network, rethinking the whole concept of Greek colonization, and finally wrapping up with a look at a decentralized ancient market.
Section 1. The Myth of Isolation. Our guide for this explainer is Professor Carla Antonaccio, specifically her chapter in The Sea in History. Setting up this academic foundation is really important because it gives us this fresh, modern lens to look through. We're going to rely heavily on network theory and human movement, totally ditching those outdated assumptions about how geography holds people back. You know, if you picture a map of ancient Greece, for the longest time people looked at those rugged mountains and scattered islands and just fell into the trap of geographical determinism. It's this old-school idea that the terrain literally forced these societies to stay isolated and apart. But we're flipping the script entirely here. It's all about connectivity. The Mediterranean, which literally translates to the Middle Land Sea, was this incredibly active, bustling superhighway. The sea didn't separate these people, it brought them together. Moving right along to Section 2, the Sea of Connectivity. To really wrap our heads around this, we need to zoom out and look at the timeline. Back in the Bronze Age, so roughly 3200 to 1200 BC, you had these amazingly dense networks. We're talking trade routes stretching all the way from the Baltic down to the Red Sea. But then, disaster. Around 1200 BC, the massive palace economies completely collapsed, plunging the region into what we call the Dark Age. But here's the absolute crucial takeaway. The maritime connectivity didn't actually end. Sure, the monumental buildings stopped and the literate bureaucracies vanished, but the networks themselves simply adapted. They decentralized and found new routes. By the time the Archaic period rolled around, from 800 to 500 BC, the network was back and booming. The sea was absolutely the ultimate survivor of the Bronze Age collapse. The ancient Greeks totally got this, by the way. Plato, the famous philosopher, had this brilliant line where he described the Greeks as living, and I quote, like frogs around a pond. It's a funny, playful little image, right? But it's actually profound. They fundamentally knew that the Mediterranean was central to their daily existence. They weren't just land dwellers who occasionally built boats. They were a truly amphibian culture, deeply reliant on this giant pond they shared with everyone else. Section 3, Nodes in the Network. Let's see how this actually worked in practice. Okay, so if the sea is a superhighway, how do you anchor it? Well, it all comes down to a concept called the emporion. An emporion was essentially a specialized trading hub. Imagine the coastlines as a sort of biological membrane. Ships arrive, and these emporia act as the porous gates. They functioned exactly like physical nodes in a modern digital network, linking the local, pre-existing populations with newcomers like Greek and Phoenician sailors. From there, inland river valleys acted like capillaries, pumping the goods and information deep into the mainland. And what exactly was flowing through those ancient capillaries? It was way more than just stuff in boxes. Obviously, you had raw materials like obsidian from the island of Milos, which they'd been trading for millennia, but you also had an exchange of cutting-edge technological knowledge like how to forge iron. And maybe even more crucially, intangible things were hitching a ride on those ships. Writing systems, poetry, shared cultural customs. Even things like ritualized communal drinking, which became a huge elite status symbol across different shores. These ships were literally carrying the building blocks of cross-cultural civilization. All right, on to Section 4, Rethinking Greek Colonization. When we hear the word colony today, we immediately bring a whole lot of modern, heavy baggage to it. To get the history right, we have to look at the actual Greek concept, apoikismos. It comes from apaisia, which has this wonderful translation, a home away from home. We really need to reframe our thinking here. The Greeks weren't launching massive imperial expansions under the command of a central king. Instead, this was an intentional diaspora. It was communities fissioning, or basically splitting apart. Maybe there was a social crisis, maybe someone was fleeing a penalty for a crime, or maybe they just wanted a fresh start. They were independently heading out to find a home away from home. Let's break down this contrast to make it really clear. Modern imperial colonization. That's highly centralized. It's driven by massive empires trying to subjugate completely unknown landscapes. Greek apoikismos was the total opposite.
It was independent and decentralized. These new settlements didn't even answer to the political authority of their mother cities. Motivated by community fissioning, these pioneers weren't sailing out into the total unknown. They were just settling on very familiar Mediterranean shores with climates they already understood. So, applying modern European colonial concepts to ancient Greeks, it's simply historically inaccurate.
Section 5. A decentralized ancient market. So, if there wasn't some grand empire pulling the strings, what did this interconnected Mediterranean actually look like? For the answer, we have to look at the bottom of the sea, specifically the Giglio shipwreck, which went down off the coast of Italy around 600 BC. It's a literal time capsule. The cargo is incredibly diverse. You've got Etruscan amphorae sitting right beside Phoenician amphorae. You've got beautiful Etruscan and Corinthian pottery packed in with heavy iron and lead ingots. This one single hull is undeniable, physical proof that no single state or empire controlled this trade. It was a vibrant, overlapping multi-net where goods from everywhere just mingled freely. Now, of course, a decentralized sea is not a utopia. A lack of central control meant that trade and piracy happened in the exact same waters. In fact, in the ancient world, they were basically two sides of the exact same economic coin. The trader and the pirate both wanted the exact same thing, to accumulate wealth across long distances. Piracy was really just a less prestigious, morally deplored form of economic mobility. But honestly, it just proves how wild, dynamic, and fluid this ancient superhighway truly was. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. If the ancient world, with all its rich, shared heritage and cultural exchange, managed to thrive on these fluid, overlapping networks instead of rigid, closed-off borders, what does that teach us about the value of connectivity today? We hope that you liked today's video. Please share your comments and subscribe to explore other similar opportunities. Post your questions in the comment section for future videos.